Good morning. Welcome back to another episode of the Jar Academy podcast. My name is Simi Gosling. Today we are talking about dating for secure love. And I love this topic. I really, really do. Because this one, I actually find out of any of like the areas that people get stuck on, and there's a lot of loopholes and there's a lot of lessons, is dating when you have more like awareness or consciousness. I'm going to break this down because this can be a little bit confusing. Dating consciously usually means that we are aware of our attachment styles, we're aware of the way we communicate, we're aware of the way our past is influencing our way and ability of turning up in a relationship. That is very different to dating for secure love. Both of them have intention, 100%, but this is where we can get a little bit confused. I know, I didn't like this one either. But dating consciously means that I have awareness, right? It means I can name my patterns and I can tell you why I'm anxious. Maybe I've even done some healing around it. I've done a bit of inner work. I've sat with some of the feelings. I've really felt it out. But dating for secure love, we are really looking for someone that we can build a secure attachment with. And if we go into dating and we are only looking for traits that say that they are conscious, that doesn't equate to having a secure, healthy relationship. It's a part of it for sure. I'm not arguing that, but awareness is the first step, right? You can go on dates with people and be like, what's your attachment style? And they can tell you exactly everything about their attachment style, but they might embody zero of it. And that means nothing really. Like, it's great that you have awareness. It's great that you've processed it. But in terms of the dynamic that I'm trying to have with this person, they're still going to default really hard back to that, where someone can be in a more secure relationship if they meet someone who, let's say, was only 20% aware of their stuff, but they had embodied every single thing. Now there's room for me to be able to work on creating a secure relationship and a secure dynamic with that person. And I think it can be a little bit confusing when I say it like that, so hopefully you're sticking with me. But my point to this is often when we are dating for secure love, we confuse the fact that everyone needs to be super aware and super conscious. And if we're doing that and we're going with a checklist and we're looking to see if they know the buzzwords and we're looking to see if they've read attached, so we're looking to see if they've done all these things, it can be a bit of a challenge because we are ultimately expecting someone to have dived as deep as we have when it may or may not be that they actually know how to embody those skills. Often when we are dating from a place of consciousness and awareness, we can be very hypervigilant to looking at how conscious and aware the other person is. And it actually still comes from a place of fear. It's like, I don't want to go back to what I had before. So I need to make sure that you are super aware and you know everything and you've done the work and you do the inner work and, you follow Jar Academy, make them follow me. You have this concept of wanting to make sure that they've done the checklist. And in that is also another layer of self-protection, because I have had people who have come to me and they said, I went on a date and I said, like, how was it? They said he wasn't even aware of his attachment styles. And I said, oh, like, okay, like what attachment style was he? And they go, oh, I don't know. I didn't, I'm not going to have a second date or I'm not going to have a third date or whatever. And that's really hard because you've made the assumption that they were unaware and therefore really in this bad place where, they've not done the work and they've not done all of this. But that person could very much be quite secure and may have slight anxious tendencies or slight avoidance tendencies. I very rarely think that as adult relationships we come through unscathed, but that's a whole nother podcast episode. And they could have been the most secure person that you have dated, but they weren't aware of their secure attachment, of their attachment styles, because they hadn't had the alarming amount of bells and pressure that someone who might have had a more extreme attachment style has, where they immediately were like, something's really wrong, I have to deal with this. And I do want to say this, and I don't like necessarily doing it because I never want people to think that like, oh, my relationship is like, golden and the perfect one. But if I went into a date with my now partner and we have the healthiest and the most securest relationship I've ever had in my life, if I went into that dating situation and I went in with a checklist of dating consciously rather than looking for secure love, then I ultimately would have not dated him, because I actually don't even think to this day he knows what his attachment style is. It doesn't matter. To me, like, he has the ability to be so open to influence that it doesn't matter. And I'm going to talk about this and I'm going to break this down, because if we're not looking for someone that is hyper aware and hyper conscious of their behaviors and then have all these things, what else are we going to need in replace of that? Because we don't just want someone who's not aware at all, right? And then has bad relationship patterns, because then there's a disconnect. But ultimately, we do want to be able to see that there's a few things that are there. So what are they? Like I just mentioned, and I'm going to talk about it first, is open to influence. I have spoken about this so many times on my content. And if you're not familiar with it, I will explain it to you. But open to influence is the ability for me to say to you, like, hey, Jess, look, when we had that conversation yesterday, I just felt like I wasn't being heard in what I was trying to communicate to you. And I know that that probably wasn't your intention, but I'm just feeling a bit sad about it. Can we talk about it? Now, Jessica, if you were angry at me back and were like, what do you mean? No, you're being sensitive. Like, no, like I was, this is ridiculous. I was just, Simi, I was just being, this and that, or like, Simi, this is so minor. Why are you even bringing this up? You're not open to my influence. You're not open. You don't have to necessarily agree 100% all of the time with what I'm saying, but you are open to hearing my perspective and valuing what I am saying and taking that on board and going like, oh shit, maybe I have a blind spot, and maybe I didn't realize yesterday when I was in a bad mood how much I was taking that out on Simi. These are terrible examples. By the way, I have literally had this much coffee, which, if you know me, is like no coffee. I have killed my adrenal glands, but we continue. Anyway, being open to influence, or that partner being open to influence, is super important when it comes to creating secure, healthy love, because it's really the backbone for like emotional attunement, emotional maturity, and being able to rupture and repair, because secure love is all about those things still happening and people making mistakes and being able to repair them well and properly without going into spirals and hurting one another and pulling away and distancing and falling into these dysfunctional coping mechanisms that we have learned because of our attachment styles. Everyone with me? If not, leave a comment and I will help you, because I know for some people it can be a bit of a new strange concept, but we want people open to influence. We want people that are willing to take things on board and make change, right? They don't have to get it right every 100% of the time, but they do it. And in saying that as well, because I know myself and whatever this says about me, but when I can be sensitive to criticism. So sometimes when people do that to me, I definitely feel some resistance to it towards the start. But as soon as I like completely regulate, then I'm like, yeah, okay, you know what I mean? So it's not even that they have to be like Barbie world, because remember, we're not doing the whole relationship perfect, secure attachment Barbie world thing, but there's the ability to kind of get there, if that makes sense. Now, this is the big one, because if they aren't super conscious, we need to know that they have positive relationship skills. We need to know that they are able to communicate in a way. We need to know, like, okay, like, hey, Sim, I'm going to camping tonight with my friends, so I'm not going to have great reception. I'm going to call you in the morning. Instead of just going camping and then going ghost, and you know what I mean? So they're able to communicate. They have good communication skills. There's other relationship skills that are probably not as loud or as not as obvious, but really what we're looking for is like emotional attunement, emotional maturity. Are they able to be in the mud a little bit and have those difficult conversations and turn up for you consistently? All those kind of personal relationship skills that really kind of fundamentally can allow us to create a secure attachment with is super important. Now, the last one that I put in here, and it doesn't really have anything to do with secure attachment itself, but we're here and we're talking about dating, is making sure that you guys have aligned values, because this is such an interesting one. Like, I think sometimes people go way too surface level with it, way too surface level. Like, they think of like, well, I like green khaki pants, so they should like green khaki pants. And it's like, no, the more you can not look at it as things externally from that person, the better, right? So what I mean by that is I can say like, oh, I want someone that has the nicest car. But what if they get in a crash tomorrow and it wasn't insured? Now I have a partner that doesn't have a really nice car. So if I want a guy that is ambitious and passionate about something, then about anything, then that's something that's within him that can adapt and change as he grows or has hardships, or like it's something within him, if that makes sense. Someone wanting to start a family and create this beautiful kind of life is something within them. A lot of people do not know what they actually want for their values. And if you don't know what you want, I genuinely recommend sitting down and writing it out. And it is not because you are creating like a fucking wish list, because this isn't about checklists, but it's to let you know and act with a little bit more discernment of like, would this actually work out long term, right? Is this actually something that this person is suited for me? For example, my values were to be kind to the people I love, kind to myself, to be someone that was always up for adventure. I honestly go traveling every single month, which is insanity. I understand that. My bank account definitely knows that. But I have just created this life for myself where I run my two businesses completely away from having to physically be in an office. And I have done that so that I can be very adventurous and I can travel and I can go and do these things. So for me, do you think that it made sense to be with someone who maybe never had been overseas, didn't really have any interest in it, didn't want to go do things, was very much a homebody? Like, it's not going to align. One of my favorite things about my partner is like, I literally can say, hey, like this place looks cool, we should check it out. And he's at least open to the fucking idea. The other thing that I want to add on here is emotional. I don't even know what I want to call it right now, but I would bundle into this like the capacity to emotionally regulate, because that is really fundamentally a lot of the time where we start to go quite wrong in, I don't want to say wrong, sorry, that's a bad word, not a bad word, a bad choice of word, but where things start to fall apart a little bit when we have attachment styles, because often when we have people with extreme anxious attachment, the ability to self-regulate is quite difficult. So they are reaching out to their partner, wanting them to give them the reassurance and soothe them and help fix, rather than kind of having both the healthy independence and interdependence. And then when we have people that have avoidant attachment, they tend to hide when they need to emotionally regulate because it wasn't safe to do that with someone else. And they often tend to remove themselves from the situation. But then there's also kind of like this prolonged dysregulation because they're also struggling to regulate their emotions because no one's really taught them. Anyway, it's very nuanced. But my point is like sometimes we need space to regulate our emotions, particularly when we become emotionally flooded. And that's okay if it's communicated well. But if they are someone that just completely goes into hiding and does all these things, or if they're completely someone that bleeds all over you every time they're dysregulated, then that's kind of a sign that there's not going to be that healthy, secure love there, that it's going to be quite emotionally challenging. Is probably the right word. Anyway, I've really ranted about this. This was meant to be the intro, but there were so many important things to say into that. So I'm just going to kind of jump straight into the next part, which is I want to talk about the dating experience itself, because the dating experience itself is hard. Now, it's easy for us to sit back and blame everyone else in the dating pool, and it is very easy for us to think that we are the only one that is more secure and more aware and more this and more that, and everything else is terrible. And I won't lie, there is a lot of people out there that are hurt and they haven't taken a second to think about how they're burnt out from dating. They haven't taken a second to process maybe this rejection that they've experienced, and they're coming in quite hot and they're coming in quite angry and they're coming in quite frustrated. But that is a projection of their own internal experience. What we need to be accountable for and what we need to make sure that we're doing is working with this dating experience in the best possible way that reflects us and allows us to have a little bit of fun with it. Dating is not about finding out how conscious someone is. It's about practicing the tools that we have learned on our own inner journey. So if we have worked on a lot of stuff with our anxious attachment and we find someone we like and then we're getting anxiously attached, this is the opportunity to practice not ending it too soon, and practice soothing yourself and practicing questioning, okay, like where does this relationship end and where do I start? Where is it the dynamic and where is it me? Because that is a tool. That is like when you are someone that has really struggled to have healthy, secure relationships, it can become very confusing about finding the, like, I use the word homeostasis because of the body work I've done, but the balance and the of what's me, what's them, what's us, what's an issue, and what's my past, and what's my responsibility to work on, and what do I need to communicate about this, and all of that takes time and it takes practice. And of course, you can learn and work on your relationship skills, and I highly freaking recommend you do, to improve and not have to rely on so much trial and error and hurt to learn, because it doesn't have to be that way. But it's really this opportunity to practice all of this and learn and see what works and doesn't work for you. I kind of like this idea, and I'm very like about sharing it, but I'm going to, because I think it's really important. We often like get told that like there's this one person in our lives for us, right? Imagine if I said to you, there is one job that is your job, and it is just going to be the most fulfilling and amazing career, and you are going to just absolutely love it. Would you sit at home and go, where's my job? I haven't met my job yet. My job, like, I can't believe I didn't get my job. Or would you go out and try different jobs to try and find your job? Would you go to a job and go, oh, actually, yeah, I liked this. I didn't like that. Maybe that's a bit too this for me. Maybe, but oh, you know what I did like? I really like this. So maybe I need more of that. And would you start to kind of work backwards to find your job? And then maybe there were jobs that you were like, oh, I really like that job. And that job is a very, very good job, but I need to do some study. I need to learn some things to get to the job that I want to get to, because I don't want an entry level job. I want a good job that is high paying and is very fulfilling and very rewarding. So I'm going to learn some things to get that job. And I know that relationships aren't a job, but I like this. Even don't read into it and pick that apart. I just wanted to share that because I think that there's some aspects of that that are very true. Future simi editing here. I do want to add in on this. I'm not talking about going and doing more inner work. When I say that you need to learn some skills to get the job, it's learning new relationship skills, but also then going out and putting what you did learn in your inner work into practice to see if that's what aligns with you. We continue. Your relationships, if you have not figured out by now, are a journey, and it is all a journey of finding that job, and it is all about finding about what does work for you and what doesn't work for you. And one of the most powerful freaking tools I ever did for this was I kind of knew what my values were, but I didn't really know like what the person I wanted to have in my life looked like. And it's the simplest of tools, but it was the most effective. Was I got a pen and paper and I wrote down all the characteristics about my past relationships that I liked and that I had enjoyed. And I loved that, like, one of my past relationships, we did work together on some projects, and I liked that, this other person was very like grounded and blah blah blah. And although it's not exactly what, like, because no one's ever the same, it gave me like a really clear idea of like, okay, like this is my baseline, like this is how I want to be treated, this is what I want, this is what this person kind of looks like. And it helped me have a lot more discernment of knowing like when to cut things off, because I think that sometimes it's hard as well. Like the dating pool itself is, yes, difficult, but then there's also like an element of like, when are we entertaining things too long, and when are we jumping the gun and thinking that things are a red flag when we're not being curious and open enough. And again, all of that comes down to the nuance of finding that balance and that homeostasis. Only you can answer that, because it's also going to look a little bit different for everyone depending on your journey and where you're at. But you don't learn until practice some of this and feels what feels right for you. Now, here's the thing. We want to go in with the mindset of it's a journey. We want to go in and not make assumptions. We want to go in and try to find the balance of what works for us. We want to go in and really not have a checklist either. So as much as I'm saying to you, like, yes, values, yes, know kind of like what you think will work for you, we don't want to sit there and kind of do this, because there is definitely situations where when you meet someone and there's like that evidence of building a secure foundation with this person and you're sexually attracted to them, there's a connection, it's the right timing. Sometimes some of these things fall away, right? Sometimes it's like, actually, that wasn't that big of a deal. This person only has 80%, but you know what? Like, 80% is really good. Like, there's always going to be things that maybe aren't there that you kind of wished were there, but no one is perfect. And if we keep romanticizing the idea of like, I want it to be perfect, we can take 80% and build a very healthy, secure, amazing, incredible life with this person. And we can learn over time to compromise and grow on things, obviously within reason. I mean, you don't want to go date someone who doesn't want a family and then want to try and convince them of that, because that's not fair on you or them. But within reason, for example, like if I had met someone who was very motivated and, let's say, had been buying a house and doing all of this stuff, and like, but was very open to traveling even though they weren't currently traveling, fine. I don't care, as long as they were open to the experience of like doing that. It didn't have to be that that value was end product, finished, ready to go today. And this was actually a question from someone as well about like not having checklist, because they would kind of, from the DM and the Instagram, they were explaining to me how they would like ask questions to really get like an answer, because obviously when we're dating, we do want to find out things about this person. We're really asking ourselves, like, can we build a secure attachment with this person? Can we build a friendship where we both genuinely respect and love and care for each other? Can we build these important aspects of our lives together? And with that, obviously, we want to find out if our values align. We want to find out these things. So, like, how do we do this without like necessarily having a checklist? And it does come down to not having yes and no questions. And it does coming down to asking open-ended questions, but also then remaining curious about that. So, for example, if I said to you, like, to like not living in Melbourne or not living in this state, and they said like, oh, I don't know, I never really kind of like thought about it, or blah blah blah, like, then you can kind of lean into that a little bit more and be like, what would you see yourself like in, you know, long term? What's like your kind of idea or your goal or your this or your that? So you kind of like leaning in and getting curious and finding a picture, and not just kind of trying to get yes or no answers, because it's crazy. I made a post, this was like a year ago, about assumptions, and like, this girl wrote in and she literally said that she was so grateful for the post because it was something that she had been a bit embarrassed about, because at the start of her relationship she made a lot of assumptions about her partner, and then eventually she had the own internal knowing of being like, maybe I should be curious about these things, and it turned out every single thing that she was assuming was wrong. Not one of them was right. And she had been embarrassed about this, like, while being in her relationship, because she was like, oh my God, like, I can't believe I didn't just ask. And I had to explain to her, but no, it's so common. We often are so blinders on to wanting to find our person and finding exactly what that looks like and exactly what we want, that we can, it's almost like a protection mechanism again. You know what I mean? It's like, as soon as they kind of say something, that we take it completely at face value, or we make up the missing pieces of the information based on our own kind of confirmation bias that this person isn't right for us, right? So now that I've talked a little bit about what we don't want to be doing in dating, what do we want to be doing in dating? Honestly, the most undervalued thing ever is finding out, can I have fun with this person? Can I enjoy just my time with this person? Is the conversation nice? Do we have a nice laugh? Because this person, let's say you're in a healthy relationship, is not always going to be nice big dinners that they've planned for you. Sometimes it's sitting in freaking doctor's offices waiting. Like, and can they bring a smile to your face? Can you have a good laugh with this person? Do you understand each other on a little bit of a human to human level? And all of this takes time, because building healthy, secure love takes time. You can't go and know all of this based necessarily off one date. I think you can know 100% whether there's like attraction or a little bit of a connection there, but you can't jump the gun too soon when it comes to healthy, secure love. The other thing with our dating is we want to remain open and curious. We don't want to get our knickers in a knot and protect ourselves and be guarded and hide it under being aware or being conscious, okay? And we don't want to push people away because we've decided things about them. We want to remain open. We want to ask questions. We want to learn more. And we want to be also open to our own relationship journey. What am I learning from this? How am I growing? What's different for me today than what was different to me a year ago? Where can I see the change? Okay. So I'm being really like open to the experience itself of dating and to remain open to that, because you might say, Simi, I'm burnt out. I'm tired. I'm hurt. I'm fucking over it. I've had enough. I don't want this anymore. And my biggest thing to you is then take a break, babe. Take a break. I guarantee you that if you are in a place where you are like, but I have to meet my person today and I have to da 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 and I have to da 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 and it's I'm already fucking laser focused into this shit, you're making it harder for yourself. And taking a couple of weeks off, literally a couple of weeks, but being intentional about it, of like taking yourself out on some dates and spending some time with you. And that doesn't have to be a financially big thing, by the way. That can be taking your book and going and reading it in the park. Whatever you need to do to kind of fall back in love with yourself and spend some time with yourself and see your own value and see that you are pretty special, because you fucking are, and see that you are capable of this amazing, incredible, healthy, secure love, and you are capable of taking this all in your stride and learning and growing, and that the right thing will, I don't even want to say it will find you. You will both find the right thing, because like I said, it's like the job, right? Like it's not about it finding you, but also you finding it. Take that time and really come back to yourself and work through as well, like, what am I still holding on to that is making this experience frustrating for me? What underneath this protective part that is feeling this anxiety and this rush and this angriness and this frustratedness, what internal part of me needs some love right now? And when you do that, you come back into the space and you have such a big open heart, and you're so much more willing to be a little bit more patient and be a little bit more curious. And if you are someone that is saying to me, like, I'm so freaking done with like the dating apps, and I get it. I am the biggest advocate. Get the fuck off the dating apps. Sorry, I'm never going to get a dating app partnership ever. Funnily enough, I've talked shit about them for years. If you've listened to any of my podcasts, not obviously this one's new, but like when I've guessed, I've never said a nice thing about a dating app. I have used them, and I even was using them the last time that I was single, and it's just horrible, because of course you want to be open and have that aspect there of like this chance of meeting someone, but people just do not value people as much as meeting them online compared to when you meet them in real life. When you meet them in real life, it's like there's at least a little bit of like holding that person accountable from like the community, because it's a friend of a friend, or it's like a you know, they've seen you and like they kind of had a chance to get to know you. But when they don't have, when you're just a picture behind a screen, no one gives a shit. No one gives a shit. And we also then, if you are going to use the dating apps, have to keep that in mind, because you don't get to say like, oh, I'm sick of everyone ghosting, I'm sick of no one communicating, I'm sick of da da da, because the ones you wanted to talk to ghost you. If you don't want people to ghost you, then you also need to not ghost them and actually use your words and end things appropriately. And that's not me having a dig at you, but I think that, you know, it's so easy for us to say the change that we want in the world, but then not embody the change that we want in the world. So just be mindful of your behavior, because I noticed my behavior on there was freaking terrible. Like I would do exactly that. I would ghost the ones that I was like, oh, nah, there's nothing, this conversation's boring, like whatever. And then I would go on to the one that I wanted. And anyway, you guys know it. I don't need to tell it to you. If you are wanting to meet people, the biggest thing like ever, I always say, is try and get yourself out into real life. And whether that's, I know that people are like, oh, and they still have this misconception about them, but I swear to God, dating events are what online dating was like 5 years ago, where people are like, you met at Bumble. Like dating events now are so good, because it's like you can make something fun of it. Like you can go with a friend and you can have like the best time of your life and like go out for dinner first and like at least have this opportunity to meet people. And maybe if you go to this event and there's like 100 people, but like there's 2 or 3 that you find attractive, that is 100 times better than sitting at home scrolling into the abyss. So go to a dating event, or if that's not available to you, go put yourself in like social groups or social hobbies or whatever that align with your interests, because you will meet more people that way. Put yourself out there is my point. Now, obviously, this is all great dating advice, but how do we actually date for like the secure love, right? How do we date for these things? And this isn't a checklist behavioral thing. We want to like give it time because we want to see that we can build a mutual respectful friendship. That is like the foundation of like when Gottman's Institute did research on different relationships, they found what's made a long-term married couple versus a long-term happily married couple, because there's a very key difference, was the ability to have friendship. And friendship is like the way that you genuinely think about someone, like the way that they're your friend and you're like, yes, like I genuinely care about you. Like, yes, like you mean something to me. I care if I hurt your feelings. I respect you and I think the best of you. And it's like that kind of friendship is so underrated when it comes to relationships. It's ridiculous. And this again could be a whole podcast on its own, but I swear to God, I dated men that absolutely fucking hated my guts, but I was just like an accessory to their life. Like, I don't think they valued me as a friend. Like, it's like you can tell the difference of when someone genuinely actually thinks like they value you as an individual rather than value you as an extension of themselves. Now, here's one of the other things when it comes to dating for secure love that kind of grinds my gears a little bit. But when people make like checklist content on like secure attachment, they always say like trusts easily, communicates easily, does this easily, and it creates a very difficult experience for those of us who are dating for secure love, because we're like, what? Like, this isn't what people are like. No one is like this. And it's not because people trust blindlessly. I find that people with secure love learn to trust each other and they start to trust that they can build a secure foundation with them. And that doesn't come instantaneously. That comes from spending, and it doesn't come from checklist behaviors either. It comes from spending genuine time getting to know this person and seeing that they're consistent in their actions and their words. That's when we start to really like trust this person. Oh, they said that they're going to call me in the morning. They called me in the morning. They said they're going to come meet me after work. They come met me after work. And we really start to build this trust through their action and their words aligning. And the same goes with communication, because we don't just go into these things and go communicate easily. Here's all my trauma on date 2. These things take time to open up, and there's still things to this day that I have worked through and I have processed and I have dealt with that I occasionally open up to my partner about, and he doesn't have to know everything today. And it's honestly so much better, I find, that way, because it's such a different like here's all my stuff and and like this rush, and it's more of like just gently peeling back this onion of getting to explore each other and continue to build this intimacy. Remember, intimacy is not closeness. Intimacy is being able to be vulnerable and open and curious, and like that really strong bond when someone says to you like, oh my God, I've never told anyone this, and you're like it's like you see them in this whole new depth. Like, that's genuine real intimacy. And it's this, and I think as well, like, it's very different because I have told things to people in a rush when I've been like, oh my God, say all this, get all of this out there, like just do it. And then, and like, it's not actually come from a genuine place. Like, I wasn't even in my body when I was telling them. Like, it was just kind of like I have to do this and da da da. But there's very different to sitting in it and being with someone who is not fucking running and they're looking you in the eyes and they're like trying to hear you as an experience, that it's so much more like soul bearing that, yeah, it takes time. Every time you go to new depths with someone, it's going to feel vulnerable, communication or not. So just be a little bit mindful of that when you're dating, please, because I don't want you guys reading these lists and then thinking like this isn't what the dating pool's like. It's not meant to be like that. It's a place to practice your tools, not to perfect them and perform them. We start to move into that when we start making commitments. Now, I think that I'm going to leave this one here for now. I'm actually going to do a second little video this week because I asked for any questions on this, and I did get a few come through about this, but majority actually weren't about this. A lot of you had questions outside of dating and stuff as well that you wanted me to answer. So I'm going to do, there's a baby kitten. Can you I'm going to do a like just a mini ep with like 10 minutes maybe and answer some questions. So if you are from the land of YouTube and you don't follow me on Instagram, my Instagram is jah.academy. And if you have any questions, please DM me, or you can, if you're brave, you can leave it. Oops, sorry. Or if you're brave, you can leave it in the comments here. But yeah, come tell me, and I will do that all a bit later in the week. I'm sorry if this was a little bit chaotic and all over the place and a little ranty, but I'm not very good at sticking to my topics, but we get there. Amazing. I will see you guys in the Q&A. Have an incredible week and we'll chat soon.